Hello everyone and welcome to another one of our webinars. For those of you that don't know me, I am Peter Kleinans and I am one of the great team here at Trotec South Africa. If the webinar is not as smooth as usual, I am running solo, so if the transitions is not as smooth, your patience would be appreciated. Today we're going to talk about the latest in our Galvo series, the Rayjet range, which is a bit more cost effective, the U50 as well as the U300. Our demonstration would be on the U50 over here, and the current configuration is with a 254mm lens with a field area of 190mm square. That area is dependent on the lens used, so of course if you have a smaller lens or a larger lens, the field area will be affected. U300 is our enclosed model that brings it to a laser safety class 2 product. Both the U50 and U300 is equipped with a Raycus 20 watt fiber laser source, and they are referred to as maintenance-free lasers. You're still going to have to clean your lens, your work area, as well as the machine itself, but the laser itself is completely seal-tuned, which makes it maintenance-free. Both come with Trotec's UMark software, and additionally with the DirectMark printer driver. We might do a separate webinar on this at a later stage. If you would be interested in something like that, please leave a note in the comments. With UMark, you can do all your basic work. You can import files from various applications like CorelDRAW or Illustrator, Adobe. You can also generate your own QR code as well as normal barcodes. DirectMark, however, is a standard printer driver that bypasses UMark. You can use it directly from CorelDRAW, Illustrator, and print to the machine. However, DirectMark is much more limited in the features than with UMark. The U300, because of its enclosed nature, is limited in regards to the height of the product. On the standard 254mm configuration, like what we are using today in this demo, the height limitation would be 22mm. So for flat plates and flash drives and pens, this would be sufficient. However, if we start talking about hip flasks and other higher items, this will become a challenge. Both the U50 and the U300 comes fitted with integrated focus finder, which makes adjusting the focus for the lens very easy and quick. The U300 is also equipped with a computerized Z-axis, which gives you the full control of your Z movement from the software on your computer and no need to interact with the machine itself. All our Galvos are also equipped with a border mark, or otherwise known as the outline functionality, to make positioning very easy. We will talk about this in a few seconds. The U50 is a completely open unit, which makes it a class 4 laser, which needs protection of safety glasses like this. The U50 comes with the standard electronic Z-axis, which is controlled by a small wired remote like this. Up and down just by using 2 buttons. Due to its open nature and scalable design, this machine doesn't really have a height limitation on your products, as long as you can put the lens in focus. You can also move the whole unit forward and use the table as the floor for your product, if you've got a very big product. Regarding the border marking functionality is great and quick for your positioning graphics. Any graphic or shape, text, logos, whatever you want to use can be used for the border marking functionality. It will be projected by the red laser pointer onto the material or product, depending on the size or shape that you use. This, however, is using one red pointer. So if the artwork or graphic is very big or very detailed, you might find that you will visibly see the scrolling of the red pointer to try to project the shape for you on your material. This will make positioning, if it's a large object, a bit more challenging. With a fiber laser, you can engrave a range of materials, mostly metals. All metals can be marked. Certain plastics can be marked. Even some other materials like leather, fabrics, etc. can be marked. Depending on the product, of course, the result will be different. For our demonstration today, we're going to use this plastic card. This plastic card has got an ABS core with 2 sides of polycarbonate. If used with the correct settings, polycarbonate will give you a very nice and smooth black. Now, to test our settings, I'm going to show you how to do a test grid. This test grids are built into the UMark software. You will choose whatever you want to test, either your power, your speed, or frequency. You will load the template, you will run it on your product, and with that template, you will be able to read what color you want versus power, speed, and frequency. I'm going to switch over to the software now. As you can see on the screen, we've got the test grid on the software. This test grid range from 10 to 100% of power, as well as frequency between 20 and 80 kilohertz. The speed is a constant 2,500, so the only 2 variables in this scenario would be the frequency as well as the power. I'm going to just switch to the full camera view for now and zoom in a bit so that you can see the marking and setup in process. Unfortunately, using the camera, you won't see the red border mark that we use to line up the product. You will ever see on the table the small little red dot. That's our focus finder. I'll just line up my product. I can either, with the positioning graphic, I can adjust my positioning with the computer. I can also just move my material into place. Once we are ready, we are just going to execute the product. As you can see on the machine there, it is currently busy marking the grid. To the far left, you will notice that we have very faded gray. Towards the center, we've got a smooth black. And to the far right, we can see that it's got a very rough texture. We will also visibly notice that the card itself is warping towards the right-hand side. This is because of too much heat on the product itself. Right. Now, based on the settings, you'll notice what I was mentioning about the rough texture on the right-hand side, smooth black on the center, and the faded gray on the left side. Based on the settings, we are going to use a logo, a QR code, as well as some basic text, just to show you quickly how the machine marks this material. So in my software, I will just open the file. Here we've got our file, we've got the Trader Group logo, we've got our telephone number, as well as a QR code, which directs customers to our website. I will open my border marking option. Now in the border marking option, you will notice I have the little arrows as well as a plus and minus sign. This gives me the scalability. I can increase my size, decrease my size. I can also move my positioning just by doing it in the software. I'm going to switch to full camera view again and just zoom in for you there so you can see. All right, so I'm ready with the camera, and we can just, before we go, just double check our settings and then hit go, or otherwise known as execute. That will, of course, do my logo, my QR code, as well as my basic text. There it is done. As you can see over here, we've got a very nice and smooth black. You can see the reflection of the light on the plastic itself. There's absolutely zero texture, no dust, just the perfect mark. Another very popular product that we have mentioned before would be stainless steel. Stainless steel is one of the most common products that people want to use on a fiber laser. For CO2 lasers, we would normally require a chemical like Mark Solid. Candace talked about that a while back in one of her webinars. For now, I am going to use one of our Trotec lip flasks. It's stainless steel, silver finish basically, and with a CO2 I would have needed Mark Solid. However, for this I'm not going to need any chemical. I'm just going to set it up on the machine. Right, my focus is set. How quick and easy was that? For the software side of things, I am going to switch over to CorelDRAW now. And I'm going to show you the process if we send this document through via CorelDRAW using the DirectMark print driver. All right, so in CorelDRAW, you will notice I've got a Liverpool logo. The Liverpool logo has been requested by one of our colleagues. And for this reason, we're just going to do it on the stainless steel flask. So the DirectMark print driver, very straightforward. It is a glorified printer, if we want to call it. I have the options to set my material similar to what I would have in UMark. I would also have the option between photo and logo, photo being a slightly higher quality mark, logo being a slightly faster mark. My resolution and of course dithering if I want to do actual grayscale photos. I'm just going to print it from here. DirectMark will open in a second, and we will do exactly the same as with the plastic card and just line it up using the guidelines. While we're doing that, I will just adjust the camera so long so that you can see the marking. No need to see my face. Right, so on the stainless steel, because it's a bit more reflective than the plastic card, you see kind of a glimpse of the red borderline. Now that borderline, what I mentioned earlier, this is what we need to see when we line up our product. Right. Once I'm ready, I will hide my border mark again. Yet again, fully scalable in DirectMark. I can move it around using the arrows, as well as increase or decrease the size using the plus or minus sign. I'm going to disable my border mark. And I'm just going to hit start. Now you'll notice quite a bright spark while it's busy engraving. For this reason, you would need to wear your goggles because that reflection from there can hurt your eyes. Fiber laser doesn't only burn the outside of the eye, it goes to the back of your retina, which can cause permanent damage. The flask that we are using here is slightly curved, and that limits our engraving area to as flat as possible that we can go. In this case, I'm pushing it at around about 60 millimeters in width. That way I get a fairly constant dark brown finish all throughout. As you can see on the camera there, the engraving is dark brown basically. There is many different ways to mark material. Stainless steel, for instance. We can also turn stainless steel black using a annealing process. This, however, does take a lot longer. So maybe we'll do this in a different webinar. Now, with stainless steel being engraved like this, I tend to just take a cloth afterwards with some silicone spray, clean it off nicely, just to get rid of all the dust that is on the product. Of course, you are not limited. You can also clean materials. I will show you a bit later in one of our frequently asked questions what the cleaning process is all about. Stainless steel, for instance, we can do the brown mark. We can also do black on the annealing. But not only that, we can also clean stainless steel off, that it gives it a more polished look. This, however, is not really good enough if you want a high visibility mark. It is, however, great if you want a smooth, polished effect. Now, using the photo mode of Direct Mark, it engraves left, right, from top to bottom, similar to what a flat bed laser would do. This process, however, does take a bit longer, but it gives us a much better result on the end product, especially if there is a lot of fine detail like what there is in the Liverpool logo. While that's busy, we can always come back to CorelDRAW and just quickly have a look at the rest of our options in the print driver. The UMark software currently do not support a rotary. This is future planning. But the rotary feature is already enabled in both DirectMark and UMark software, although there is no rotary attachment currently available. Our resolutions, we can go up to 1000 dpi. And specifically on dithering, this we normally use for photo engraving. We can use either Floyd Steinberg or Stucky. The machine, of course, comes with a preset material database. This database is shared between DirectMark and UMark. You can add and remove materials as you please. It comes with all the standard, your stainless steel, your anodized aluminium, some basic plastic settings. All the settings, however, is estimates. You still have to test them on your product to see if they actually work. All right, and there our engraving is done. Just going to switch back to the camera. Over here, you will notice the finished product, even brown right through. I am just quickly going to give it a wipe with a cloth, just to get rid of some of the dust. And over here, you'll see the end result on the stainless steel hoop flask. Right. Leaving the camera in place as is, I am going to switch over to the next product that we're going to handle today, which is anodized aluminium. Anodized aluminium is probably one of the easiest materials one can work with almost any laser, CO2 as well. Anodized aluminium, and the same goes with most coated materials, we just have a coating to remove from the product. In this case, I'm just going to use a small black anodized aluminium plate. I will set up my focus to the plate because my focus was different from the previous object, which was the hip flask. And I'm going to use the same QR code logo and telephone number that we used earlier on the plastic card. I'm going to switch over to the software. So while showing the watermark, I can now just resize. I'm just resizing it for the anodized aluminium. The anodized aluminium is, of course, slightly smaller. I have to, of course, change my material setting to the correct material, which is anodized aluminium. And from there, I will just run my product. Now, I'm going to remove the software from the screen there so that we can have a better look on the anodized aluminium. As you notice, it's extremely fast in comparison to stainless steel, for instance. You saw the stainless steel took a bit of time. And there it is done. That took a whole of 12 seconds. Now, depending on the grade of aluminium, normally we have a very nice high visibility white mark on anodized aluminium. This, however, does depend on the quality of your product, the quality of the purchased product, and of course, what else is on the coating. All right, I'm just zooming out there quick. Right. So that brings us to our frequently asked questions. We have received some questions beforehand. I've asked a couple of people for some feedback, some questions. One of our customers that recently added a machine to their range, I have asked them as they work with the machine to give us some feedback and some questions that they found during working with the machine to see where we are going with some frequently asked questions. One of the first questions that we have would be contact engraving versus non-contact engraving. Do you need to clamp your products down? Like the flask, for instance, do I need a clamp or a fixture to keep the flask from moving while engraving? The answer is a simple no. Fiber laser as well as CO2 laser is a non-contact process. This means you can engrave on any product by just placing it on the table, lining it up with your border mark, and run the marking. For multiple items, you can, of course, use a jig and just line up your artwork or graphic to the jig itself. Another frequently asked question that we get is, what materials can we mark, or can we mark all materials? Well, no. CO2 is a heat process, where fiber is a highly focused light beam. So certain materials react better to light, certain materials react better to heat. So on the fiber laser, we can mark all metals. We can mark some plastics, not all plastics. There is certain plastics that doesn't want to mark at all. We can also mark some leathers, some fabrics. It all depends on what's inside the product. Fiber changes the composition of the material. So with plastic, for instance, if there's no pigment or additive inside the plastic product, the chances that you're going to get any decent mark is very slim. Metals, however, being very easy. And then, of course, certain fabrics where we can literally just remove the color, or depending on the leather, of course, change the top coat of the leather, which gives us another type of finish. Without testing your product, like the plastic cards, using the same test grid that we used earlier, without testing that product, you're not going to really know what the end result is. If it's a once-off for a customer, of course, we normally don't have many places to test on the product. So in that case, rather just use a lower power setting, maybe go over twice instead of trying to go once. Got a good comment there from Jinx. Thank you very much. Yes, photo setting was used. This does make the process a bit slower, but also engraving stainless steel is a lot more power required, as well as less speed than, for instance, anodized aluminium. So that already slows the process down. Photo mode, yes, it does slow things down a bit, but we need that if we want the quality of fine details. Right. Do you need extraction with the fiber lasers? You'll notice on the bottom of the Galvo head, you should see it there on the camera, is a pipe. You can connect the extractor to the machine, yes. However, depending on your workload, if your workload is a lot of anodized aluminum or ceramics or anything that generates a lot of dust and smoke, you would need extraction. If we do a couple of these plastic cards or one or two of the stainless steel heat flasks, we would not need extraction because it does not generate a lot of smoke nor dust. The standard color on material or metal specifically is a dark brown. How do you mark a dark metal with a legible mark? Well, for this exercise, I'm actually just going to show you. I'm going to add the software over here again so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to remove the QR code and text and just have the logo there. And we're going to use this specific mild steel. It's a piece of off-cut metal. It's a dark bluish color. So we're going to mark on this. I'm going to mark two different ways. I'm just going to mark the material as if it's a standard piece of metal. And then we're going to see how the color comes out. Right. So in the software, I just need to change it to my steel engraving setting. And when I'm ready, just switch on my border mark. Now I'm going to switch over to full view of camera. And just zoom in there for you so you can see what happens. So currently I'm going to run this at the same setting that I would engrave stainless steel. As you can see, a very nice and bright spark. And Jinx, just to add to your comment from earlier, I'm using the same stainless steel setting here. Although I am back in UMark, so there's no photo mode, it's also taking a bit of time. And this is mainly because of the speed and the power relation on the stainless steel setting. We do have to eat quite a bit of the material away to get a real contrast. Very good question from Stefan. Stefan, yes, the maximum part size depends on the lens. Well, your field area on this particular lens is 190 millimeters square. So 190 by 190 millimeter square piece. So the piece of material that you can mark at any given point is 190 millimeters. However, you can segment your artwork, which then takes away that limitation of 190 millimeters. If you use the U50 instead of the U300, you don't have the limitation of the height, in which case your product can be as big as a truck tire and you would still be able to mark it. All right, coming back to our product over here, we'll see the marking is on the material there. If I tilt it towards the light, we can see it, but it's not legible. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do the same one right below that one. And this is going to be a two-part process. I'm first going to engrave it with the standard stainless steel setting, yet again to get our depth. It doesn't go very deep into stainless steel or mild steel on one pass. We can do deep engraving, however, deep engraving does take a lot longer and a lot more passes. I'm talking about 70 passes or up for aluminium for about 0.5 millimeter. For stainless, probably a lot more. Right, so once my engraving there is done, I'm going to switch over to a cleaning setting over here. Now keep in mind that can all be done in one pass by just changing in the software. Now for the cleaning, we use a slightly different setting. I'm just switching over to my cleaning parameters, and then I'm going to run it again. Notice I have not moved my material, and the reason for that is easy lining up of the product. As you can see on the table there, I don't even have to lift it up yet. Just quickly going to wipe the excess dust away. But as you can see there, it's a high visibility mark. It's not pure white, but it's a lot more visible than the first initial mark. This we just do by cleaning the dust out of the mark and using a wider gap to create that little white finish. All right. Just zoom out quick, or not so quick. Right, so one other question that we tend to get quite a lot, can you cut metal? No. This machine was designed for marking metal and marking plastics. You can do deep engraving, as mentioned earlier, on certain materials, aluminium being the easiest because of its soft nature. You can do deep engraving on stainless steel or mild steel. It just takes a lot longer, a lot more passes. And of course, depending on the thickness of the product, we might have a bit of a problem with heat. If it's a thin aluminium, for instance, I can't engrave very deep before the material stops warping because of heat generated. So simple answer on the cutting of metal, that's just no. Another question that we get quite often, can I mark trowlays or other plastic laminates which I use on my CO2 machine on the fiber laser? Well, yes and no. Certain of the plastic laminates do react very well to the fiber laser. However, what you must remember is the coating is differently designed on each and every product. So each product will give you a different finish. Some products you will have to do more passes than on others to get the same result. After a couple of passes to get through the top coat, the finish might also not be as smooth as what you're used to on your CO2 laser. On your very thin substrate, your trowlays lights, for instance, after a couple of passes, you would also be able to cut through it. But on your thicker materials, not at all. Another question that we tend to get, can I mark on glass or clear substrates like clear acrylic? Fiber is a wavelength of light. So the simple answer would be no. Light just passes through anything see-through. However, polycarbonate, for instance, is also a see-through material. But because of the composition of the material itself, we can mark it. So, yet again, the basic stuff like clear acrylic and glass, we know for a fact there's nothing in the product, so the beam will just pass right through. But if we don't test, we don't know. So I always suggest to our customers to rather test the product first before they just assume that it cannot be marked. All right. I haven't seen any more questions coming into the comment section. If you still wanted to ask a question, feel free to email us or just give us a call at the office. This brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you for everyone that watched and interacted with us. We do appreciate it. I hope that the information provided has opened your mind to other possibilities for your business. And if you would like any more information on these machines or pricing on the machines, feel free to contact our great sales team and they will give you all the details that you would like. Until next time, stay safe. Goodbye.